Brother, it is so good to see you because, honest to God, I was looking back at interviews and stuff. It's probably been, I would say, at least over 15 years since you and I have done an interview. And back then, I used to have the long, long braids, and you used to come down to the radio station to do the interviews with me, or we did it over the phone, or it was always something. But man, I missed you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, it's a lot of years gone by. Still kicking ass, doing what I can as far as like going out there and performing as much as possible. Audience seems to be getting a little bit grayer as I purposely dye mine gray only because everybody else has. So let's just say it's been ongoing. It's been, as you know, tumultuous over the last 4 or 5 years, but we're not going to go into that. But I've had a good time. There was some obviously downtime that it's sort of like at this point in my career, I certainly didn't need things to be sort of like put on hold in any way. But health-wise, anxious-wise, ready to keep going and keep at what I'm doing. I'm still all there. Everything's good. I'm back and forth across Canada a couple of times a year. I don't plan on going anywhere else, but unless some people start asking, but I don't know. Things are good.
You're still releasing music. In fact, didn't you release music during the pandemic?
2019. There's a new world, of the Spotify's and the online music and stuff. I just didn't understand it. So, I got together with Peter Cardinelli from Alma Records, and he was involved with internationally Universal. So I put something out, and it's it's kind of something I did a lot of the record. Obviously I did it, but it was kind of like, hey Pete, let's get Universal and stuff so I can get an understanding on how it works these days, how they break it down, how you because I didn't understand it at all. So anyway, and knowing that there's going to get some kind of worldwide release and stuff, so it's interesting seeing some things coming out of Mexico and places in Europe. So am I still doing it? Yeah, 2019, I put something out because I really wanted to know what was going on, and of course, for the obvious reasons, one must keep busy.
Absolutely. It's funny when we spoke. Spotify never existed.
No.
Apple, what the hell? Zoom interviews like this? Come on, please. So much has changed in the industry, but you know what hasn't changed? Your amazing voice, brother. It still resonates, and there are some incredible performers today. I will challenge them trying to catch up to you, man. How do you maintain such a naturally incredible, rich voice like you have?
Thanks so much. For what it's worth, as far as singing and the stuff that I've done, as far as like a certain amount of training, when you think training, there's people out there that sing theater and stuff that are absolutely fabulous in what they do. Of course, when they get up on stage, they don't sing for like 3 hours, 2.5 hours a night and whatnot. But I find that having a little bit of understanding of where the voice comes from, and then I walk a lot. I don't do like major strenuous exercises and stuff like that, but I find that I try to walk about 7 days a week, 5 to 7 days a week, and I walk anywhere between an hour to 3 hours a day. It keeps my stamina up. And what I found in all these years, and as we age and stuff, the worst thing is to be able to stand there and try to have energy. It's something that's sort of like is fleeting. This energy goes away. I find that with this regular kind of routine of just walking, and I just amble around for like long periods of time, I find that I got energy. Now, as far as the singing voice and whatever the hell is like to be able to maintain it when not to be able to have it, all I could say is I'm lucky that I can maintain the energy levels to be able to sit there and go for it. But if you're saying it still sounds pretty darn good coming from you, then I appreciate that big time. I must be doing something right. Thank you.
You are. The other thing you're doing right too is I want to get this right off the top. You're coming back home. You're coming to Toronto. You got a big show that's going to be happening.
Well, Revival's a Revival. I haven't been there in a long while, but the Hughes Room people have been just fabulous as far as like taking their their shows to different clubs in Toronto, in Toronto, like everything from the Al Macombo to 3031 to it just keeps going. I'm gonna for a while there. I said, "What are we doing at the Al Macombo?" I remember, and all of a sudden I see Al Macombo, and on the what they had flashing on the back of the stage was the Hughes room. I said, "Oh, I get it." So I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm last time I was there was again 3030 on Dundas Street, and this
Yes,
time that'll be at
3030 West.
yeah, so it'll be an earlier a Valentine's Day thing. I'll be working with this will be quite a bit more intimate. I'll be doing it with a Cuban friend of mine, Silvio Pupo, who's coming up, and so the two of us. So it's going to be duo. We're going to run a few tracks to be able to add a little bit of excitement in some of the songs, but otherwise it's very just myself and on guitar and Silvio with piano, and he's just a fabulous keyboard player. So nobody's going to miss anything because I imagine that are going to be there to hear the songs, and it's something that's it's something that still I obviously keep doing. It's becoming difficult to remember them all.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot of songs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Here's the thing: is it tough for an artist like yourself when you create new songs that you want to perform and get out there, but then you got people like myself going, "Yeah, we love your new songs, but we want the songs we grew up on. We want the classics."
Oh, you know, a million years ago, I would sit there and knowing that we were doing the with the record company with EMI and Capitol Records and doing these songs and stuff, and what they needed us to do to be able to sell records and get you on tour and stuff were not really the kind of songs that I wanted to write. I could write the rock and roll down the middle kind of stuff. I know I could. I could write, I can hear heels clicking on the sidewalk and do that kind of stuff where you can have some fun with it. But as a legacy and what leaving a legacy was kind of important to me that I maintained a certain amount of, well, to me anyway, integrity of what I was doing writing. So when I get out there and some people want to hear the songs, like I still, with a little bit rearrangement, I can still do When I Fall in Love Again, We Should Be Lovers, Passion, and do them just a little bit differently where I could still feel good about doing them every night after year after year after year. So it's pretty important that you don't find yourself in a rut, which is real possible. Like, I mean, can you imagine, with all due respect to the people like the Elton Johns of the world, where all of a sudden it's sort of like, it's a good thing all those years in a huge catalog, but people want to hear. I mean, I can't compare myself to like worldwide success that he's had, but you get stuck doing the same songs forever. And they say, I got a new record. Not interested. Not interested in your new record. Play the song I remember, like you just said, and it makes all the sense in the world. And I try to slip in a lot of new songs because I've done like about 16 records, 15 records after all that early stuff, and nobody's really heard any of the new stuff. So I slip them in here and there, and try to get them a little bit to. There are more songs there, but I'll make sure they hear all the songs they want to hear.
Fantastic. Let's go back in the day. See, our era can say back in the day because It truly is back in the day. What was it like for you growing up? And when you're discovering your voice and talent, and to come to realize you could sing rock, pop, R&B, soul, funk, gospel. You could sing any of those categories and more if you wanted to. What is it like for you growing up around in a city and country that is so diverse that you can pick up so many different elements from so many different nationalities?
I was, it started off a long time ago. My dad kept me off the streets. He was a barber, my father, and it kept me in the barbershop with him. There was, up until I was 13 years old, I'd spend my summers with my dad because like I said, he wanted to keep us off the streets of downtown Toronto and idle hands and all that kind of stuff. But I was already into the music that he was listening to, even being Italian. Like if you start thinking about Italy and the surroundings and stuff, there's a very much of like an Arabic, Middle Eastern kind of vibe to it when you start thinking about old Neapolitan songs because of the proximity to Europe, to Africa and stuff. There was some really cool things. So their old, they called it antico, the old age music, they called it, had some really cool Arabic kind of overtones to them, you know, and East Indian. There was a little bit of all that, but in listening to it, I always found it interesting. And then of course, you started liking all sorts of music. The biggest thing was I'd liked so many different kinds of music. Average White Band. I loved, you know, when you start thinking about the R&B stuff, like from Hall and Oates to, you know, just start thinking about. I mean, I loved the Allman Brothers Band, certain kinds of music and whatnot. But again, to keep going back to where you were sort of supposed to be centered as far as like what music was supposed to be based on our era in the 80s and where the record company wanted you to go with it and what was selling. I was still staunch on loving to sing all those songs, being able to know that. And it was like it's not like we planned on it, but all the top, you know, top 40 bands that I played with before Surrender, before we started doing original music, I was doing everything from disco to country and western to rock, major rock, to Foreigner, to whatever. You start cutting your teeth on things where you hear it anyhow. And if you've got any kind of voice and stuff, it'd be easy to mimic and to ape that stuff, you know. And then doing theater, being able to do theater and having to change sort of like a bit chameleon to what has to go, it's offered a lot of place that you could fall on. I'm sure just after over all these years, it's a lot of different kind of things have stuck. I mean, if you listen to some of the new records, new stuff I'm doing, nothing stays on one exact kind of thing. And, you know, I'm all over the place as I enjoy singing as many kind of songs as possibly can. And it's supposed to be about having fun and enjoying yourself, right? If you're going to be doing something for the rest of your life, you don't want to be sort of cornholing yourself.
But your voice was perfect for ballads, man.
Especially it still seems to be. People seem to like all that, and the ones that sort of hurt. I mean, hurt because I have to sing them so hard that I cough up a lung, you know, in some cases. But we'll continue doing so as long as I can.
You definitely have to do that. You know, there's been some major events in your music career that have happened. Of course, what was it like for you picking up a Juno Award?
You know, I almost feel like, you know, there's that expression I've used a few times, like Forrest Gump. You know, I really never had like, you know, sort of falling into things. You know, it's not like I had this incredible aspiration to do so. It sort of like seemed like it was a fun thing that we were doing at the time, and it started becoming really scary later when you're winning things and people are going like, wow, all of a sudden the pressure was on. And that's something that I've never really looked at it that way. What was it like? I suppose in thinking back, it was like, I have to shake my head and feel very proud, still shake my head and go like, do I deserve this? I mean, I never sort of ran around going, wow, I found it kind of like hard to handle, to tell you the truth. It was a little bit too much. I was kind of intimidated for a long, long time, feeling that it was too much too soon. I don't know how to explain it, but it scared me.
If that was scary, Dirty Dancing must have put you like in the hospital.
It was, you know, again, people were talking about it's. I went to see that they said that, you know, all these years, apart from all the singing stuff that I was doing a lot of writing for publishers. So my publishing deals allowed me to write and get involved in writing different kinds of music. So how many times with the EMI, we're sitting there and get these movies that are coming up, from Top Gun to Flashdance, so all this stuff, and they're asking you to write a song for them. But most of the time it all went to the state writers and stuff like that, for whatever it was, United States things, whatever, Canada if you're lucky, blah blah. But anyway, Jimmy Ider, New York, was the guy involved with Dirty Dancing, and he said to me, was supposed to sign with them once upon a time as a record deal, but didn't do it. But he said, one of these days we're going to get together again. I'm going to call you. You're going to write me something. Nobody knew about Vestron. Nobody knew where, you know, most of the people that were involved in the records are kind of just coming to the end of their career in a lot of ways. They've been around for a while. So Jimmy put together this great entourage of people. And who knew? I went to see the movie and I looked at it, it was sort of like what do you call him? Chevy Chase walking up in American Vacation. He walks up to the Grand Canyon. They go, look, the Grand Canyon. He walks up, he goes, and walks away. I saw the movie and my feelings were like, it's cute. It's a nice movie. Who the hell knew? I had no idea. Vestron, they didn't know about everything. So I happened to be at the right place at the right time. The harder you work, the luckier you get. To have all that stuff going in one way, it was okay because I didn't have to be the face for it. All I had to know that I was involved in it, and it took a sort of pretty much living in cockroach infested apartments in downtown Toronto, which is like a lot of cockroaches downtown Toronto, but and up to a little bit of place that we could rent some with the wife and kids and moved us out of it, and it allowed that, and it was great being part of it all and seeing the huge success of it. And obviously you could actually nurture it somewhat for my career to be able to move forward. It offered me more roles for theater that I was doing and whatnot. So it was, it certainly didn't hurt in allowing me to move on.
You know, I remember I was working at a radio station. It was actually one of my first jobs, CKO. It was an all news station. And I remember there was a huge buzz about Canadian artists coming together. I remember seeing it in the newspaper, and you just heard all this stuff. Tears Are Not Enough was being recorded.
Yeah.
And basically the best of Canadian artists were coming together. You were one of them.
Yes.
What was that like to look around and seeing all these amazing artists, not just of its time, but all time, coming together, recording something to give back to the world? It must have been an incredible and humbling experience.
I was very proud. I was dealing with the camp out in Vancouver at the time. That would have been Lou Blair was managing. He was the original manager for the Lover Boy, and was in he and Bruce Allen, Bryan Adams, Bruce Allen. So anyway, and then they were Lou Blair. They were partners for a while, and I got involved in that camp. And they were obviously at that point in time, Rob, with David Foster being involved with that, I guess, and being in the right place at the right time. But it was wonderful. I imagine there was going to be a good chance at that time, what was happening with EMI and where my records were doing at that time, that was a good chance that I was going to be asked. But I was pretty much a shoo-in, knowing that I was with that camp with Lou Blair and Bruce Allen and stuff. And I was incredibly proud. I just kept my mouth shut and just watched and listened to. And I remember one of the highlights. There was a lot of highlights, talking to Ronnie Hawkins and with Lisa Del Bello. I did that bit with Lisa Del Bello, and she's a sweetheart. And she was doing that Human Forces thing. And she was just a wonderful artist. And she looked striking, wonderful, and I remember Ronnie Hawkins looking and saying, he kept calling, hey, Stella. So her name's Lisa Del Bello. So Ronnie Hawkins is across from us. We're just waiting our turn to do whatever and just mingling. And he kept going, hey, Stella. She goes, Ronnie, because she knows Ronnie really well. She says, Ronnie, you talking to me? He goes, yeah, Stella Lugosi. And I was sitting next to her at the time, and I had to laugh because, and she did too, because leave it to Ronnie to be able, because I guess they'd known each other for a long time, and she had that look about her. But like I said, striking, but he had to call her Stella Lugosi, and that made me laugh. Going to playing, I was just again minding my own business and playing the video game, and Joni Mitchell came by, so we played. So we were sitting there and playing, having some a great talk about like me asking her for whether she was the one actually posing for Blue or for the Venus of Milo thing where she's walking into the water, and she was wonderfully open about all that kind of stuff and everything. And just again, the people that we talked to, remember Véronique Beliveau, and from the French part of it, I mean, made some pretty lasting impression on me and some of the folks that I was actually able to maintain as friends through the years. I mean, obviously things are a little bit different these days, but a lot of time has gone by. It'd be interesting to see what everybody's doing at this point in time right now. But it was a very proud moment. It was a pleasure to be with, and every now and then people send a reminder of it and brings back fond memories.
It definitely does. And the one thing I'm very happy about, nobody's tried to re-sing that, like bring in other artists. Just leave it alone.
Leave it
It
alone.
was a perfect time, perfect everything. And when it
It
comes to perfect, what would you say was the perfect song for you that you wrote and performed? What would you say was your favorite that you created, and why?
that's really, you know, things that sort of started. If I have to say things that's kind of started my career off, and as far as like the songs, one of the first few songs that I'd written that the people like the Frank Davieses and the Dean Camerons and the people at the Capitol and stuff, was a song called "Start Again." "Start Again" was something that I still get people constantly asking me about, and you know, whether I have a brother or not. It was just sort of like to be able to. I guess put me kind of in a league, and as far as like as a writer goes, as far as like being able to sing this stuff. But as far as a writer goes, that's the one song that all of a sudden brought attention to me in a lot of ways. So I have to say that it's kind of a special tune, knowing that I was like 18, 19 when I wrote it. Um, you know, my mom hearing it, me in the basement working on these things and getting it done, it took me into a demo situation with the band after many years of playing like top 40 stuff. And so that brought everything to the forefront. The other important thing was that um, it got me to, we were looking for a singer for the band because I never had any intention of doing any singing. I want you to know when I talk about Forrest Gump, I'm not kidding. I was writing this stuff and I was playing, you know, rhythm and some lead guitars. And what we were going to do was surrender. We were going to, at that point, I was writing these songs. The band was, you know, helping and writing the tunes, but it seems that they finally figured that I'm the guy that does the writing. But anyway, as it turned out, uh, we went into the studio with Terry Brown at way back when I can't remember the name of the studio in Toronto Sound, I think it was. And they
Yeah.
said, just sing the songs so that we could look for a singer. At least you'll have a demo to be able to sing, and then we'll audition the singer. So I sang "Start Again" and I sang the songs that we were writing and stuff. And they said, we don't need a singer. You're the guy. And I, from that day on, I think that's when I started drinking scotch, because I would hide. I would hide behind a microphone stand. You know what I mean? If I could, I would hide behind a microphone stand. I was just terrified. It took a long, long time for me to get used to doing that. I just never expected it. So that was the beginning. Start Again started this whole thing that all of a sudden here I am singing and carrying on and doing. I mean, you know, it's been amazing after that. But Start Again, I think, is probably because it was the catalyst, I think.
As we're wrapping this up, then what advice would you have given young you if we could go back in time? What advice would you give yourself back then to what you know now?
A mentor would have been good. You know, someone to sort of like give me an idea of how this business works, not so much the artist and whatnot, the business, the idea how everything works. And you know, because I just went bright-eyed and bushy-tailed into the deepest part of the jungle, you know. And it's not that that I didn't, that I shouldn't or couldn't have trusted a lot of the people that were was that I was involved with, but having a little bit more savvy and moxie, not being so innocent, probably would have been a good thing. Um, Being able to be prepared of what could happen, and I mean like in a good way, and being able to be prepared and what it would be like with the accolades and how to be able to deal with it, and sort of like, you know, someone that had been through this stuff, sort of taking me under their wing and saying, hey, here's what's going to, you have to be careful, this might, you know, that kind of thing. I think if I had to look back, had I had a mentor or someone that I could trust to sort of help the guiding through this amount of craziness and wonderful and nuts and everything, I mean, it's all turned out just fine, but there was a lot of sort of like walking in the walls and sort of like, you know, you're falling deep into the crevice and a lot of climbing back out of and stuff that I think could have been eliminated with someone with a little bit of experience to be able to say, like, buddy, it ain't gonna work that way, but like I said, for the most part, I kept it pretty much my gut instincts, and it got me through okay.
And last question, how do you want your music and your career to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a good songwriter, a good singer, as far as the legacy goes, and hope that I love it when people say things to me like, I listen to when they mention records that to me are somewhat obscure since the big record thing and where we are now, how things have changed so much, and the fact that a lot of people don't get a chance to hear a lot of my new stuff. But we'll be changing that as we go. As when people say that, I want to be pulled out of a really rough time. I really love listening to your record, and when I hear it, it sort of like inspires me to sort of get out there. Look, it's a sunny day. Everything's nice. So, in some ways, if it helps someone is just in their mood and being able to put someone in a nice place, and then I win. I won as far as bringing sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's true, bringing some joy to people out there. I mean, if people could listen to some of my music and make them feel good and happy, then I guess I won.
We were all winners, man, listening to your music and watching your career as you represented the red and white over the years. It's been an honor because, like I said, for me, being a kid getting into radio and hearing the stories about Tears Are Not Enough and hearing all these artists like yourself, would never think in a million years from watching your videos on Much Music and trying to get into your concerts that I would be doing one-on-one interviews with you. And after all these years, we would be doing Zoom interviews. For me, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And I say to you, sir, with all my heart,
Rudy,
thank you,
Rudy,
thank you, thank you so much for making a dream of myself come true.
you're most kind, Rudy. I thank you so very, very much. Thanks for allowing me to be on with you when you're here in your show. It's a pleasure to see you again. And the dreads are still back in your head here somewhere. What underneath
No,
your
no,
hat?
they're gone, man. Completely gone. Completely
Cool.
gone.
Well, wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you.